Welcome back, Mets fans, to the dumpster fire and disaster that is the 2025 Mets offseason. Pete is gone. As if this offseason couldn't get any worse, losing Nimmo, losing Diaz, and now losing Pete. A lot of Mets fans are very angry. I feel like I'm more hurt than anything by all this. I mean, if you told me in spring training that come the end of the in 2025 that come the end of the year we were going to lose Nimmo, Diaz, and Pete all in the span of about 2.5 weeks, I would have thought you were crazy. And I waited to do this because I wanted to see if anything more came out with it or anything like that. And anything that could came out wasn't helpful. I mean, the Mets, Alonso, I don't even know where to go. So Pete's going to Baltimore, 5 years, 155 million or whatever it was, and the Mets didn't even put in an offer. Which, to me, if the Mets weren't willing to go to X amount of dollars with Pete, I guess I could learn to live with that. Reluctantly. But you didn't even make him an offer? I don't understand how the Mets don't even at least offer him something. I knew this offseason was going to be a disaster with Boris and Alonso, and it was just going to be very drama-filled just because that's how it was last year. And it was even worse than that this year because Pete is no longer a Met. When I looked at Pete Alonso, I saw someone who took a lot of pride in being a Met for life, and I anticipated him being a Met for life and his 20 going in the rafters and potentially him going into Cooperstown with the Mets cap on, and now he's going to spend the next 5 years in Baltimore. And there's no opt-out, so he's there the full 5 years unless the Orioles trade him. If someone's going to willing to take on that contract, that'll be the only way that will happen. And it just flat out sucks. This offseason has sucked for the Mets. And I was really thinking about it today because the Mets tribute video that they made for Alonso got me thinking about it and just how awful it feels right now. Even if the Mets were to get Kyle Tucker, even if they were to pull off a trade for Tarek Skubal, I still don't think that it can make up for losing Nimmo and Diaz and Pete. A lot of people are more upset about Nimmo and Diaz. They were glad to get rid of Pete. I was in the minority where I wanted Pete to stay. And the fact that he's somewhere else is mind-boggling to me. I mean, yesterday, my mind, along with every other Mets fan, was going a million directions, wondering what the hell is this team doing? Where do we go from here? You have Steve Cohen making comments. His comment that he understands that the Mets fans are upset and justified, and he says we're going to have a playoff team in 2026. Who's playing first base? Who's playing left field? Who's closing games? It's Devin Williams, obviously, but I mean, when you had the best closer in baseball and you let him walk for $3 million, what are Mets fans supposed to think? I think as sports fans, we've started to take for granted how amazing it is and how, I guess, special it is when guys are insert team for life. Whether they're a Met for life or a Yankee for life or a Steeler for life or a Knick for life or whatever that case is. I think as sports fans, we've taken that for granted because that just doesn't happen anymore. I mean, when you look at the Mets right now, it is a lot of homegrown guys with McNeil, with Beatty, with Vientos, with Alvey, Peterson. You got the three aces. I don't really know if you count. I don't think you count Senga as homegrown, but I guess he falls in that weird middle ground. It is, to me, inexcusable after already trading away Nimmo, after losing Diaz to the Dodgers not 24 hours earlier. It is inexcusable for the Mets to not keep Pete Alonso. The fact that they didn't even make him an offer is what makes me more upset than the fact that he left. How do you not even make him an offer? And people need to stop with talking about his defense and saying that his defense is going to age poorly and he's a glorified DH. I don't care about Pete Alonso's defense. You are paying, let's say the Mets offered him, I'm just going to work with round numbers, 4 years for $100 million, so $25 million a year, just for the sake of working with even numbers. You are paying him $25 million a year to hit 40 home runs and drive in 120 every single year. That is what you are paying for. You are not paying for him to be a Gold Glove first baseman. You are not paying for him to be an above average first baseman. If he's league average, you take that and that's a huge win. You need just a body at first base. And eventually, yes, as he gets older in his career, he moves to DH. You're paying him, again, fake numbers, $25 million a year to hit 40 home runs, to drive in over 100 runs, and to be the face of your franchise. And if you were going to have anyone be a Met for life, and if you didn't think it was going to be Nimmo, it certainly has to be Pete. And you didn't even do that. I understand Steve Cohen. Everyone talks about Steve Cohen having unlimited money. He doesn't have unlimited money. There is a maximum of what he's willing to spend. And he has shown he's willing to spend. And he has, I don't even know if he's shown willingness to reserve, because I don't know what his involvement is in negotiations with free agency and with trades and all that. I feel like Steve Cohen is kind of in that middle ground of he's hands-on when needed, but hands-off when he doesn't need to, and he lets Stearns do his thing. But when you do have the richest owner in baseball, and you don't even make an offer to your face of the franchise first baseman, your slugger, franchise leader in home runs, on his way to be the franchise leader in RBIs and probably a bunch of other major offensive categories, retire a Met and only a Met, his 20 in the rafters, and you don't even make him an offer, is mind-boggling to me. I said this yesterday, and I've probably said it a million times. I've had Stearns and Cohen's back on almost every single thing that they've done since they've taken over the team. And this is the one off season where I'm like, don't really know about that. And if the Mets get Kyle Tucker, if the Mets trade for Tarek Skubal, yeah, I'm back in. I'm still upset, but I'm like, yeah, hell yeah, let's go. I do think the Mets will still be a competitive team in 2026 when they finish making the moves that they have for the rest of the offseason, whether it's Tucker or Skubal, or they get Bellinger, or they get Zach Gallen, or there's some rumors about Wilson Contreras on the Cardinals getting him. I do think the Mets will have a competitive and exciting team in 2026. It's going to be a lot of young guys, but I'm trying so hard to be patient with the fact that they're trying to build something where the Mets are in the playoffs every single year. They're competing for a World Series every single year. There's going to be some growing pains with that, but when those growing pains are 3 cornerstone pieces to your franchise in the span of 2.5 weeks, what are you supposed to do as a fan? That it sucks. You can be upset currently, but understand what they're trying to do. You're trying to understand what they're trying to do long term. It depends how the rest of this offseason goes. Because depending on how this offseason goes will make or break a lot of people's views on Cohen and Stearns. Because there have been a lot of talk, especially from Stearns, on how confident they are that they are going to put up a championship caliber team in 2026 and beyond. And if that doesn't deliver, fans have already turned on Stearns and Cohen. They're going to turn even more and even faster if they can't salvage some part of this offseason. And I don't know how you lose those three guys so quickly and you didn't even put up a fight for one of them. It's crazy to me. Like, what is the direction of where we're going? Right now, who's playing left field? Who's playing first base? Because if you look at this team right now on paper, you got Alvey behind the plate. You have Beatty at third, Lindor at second, Lindor at short, Semien at second. At first right now, a platoon of McNeil and Vientos, with Vientos DHing on the days he's not playing first. In the outfield, you got Taylor and Soto, and who's in left? David Stearns has spoken very highly of Carson Bench. The amount of pressure that Carson Bench has on him, just from the way that the media has talked about him being like a Mike Trout, like superstar caliber player. Like Carson Bench has some pretty big shoes to fill based on the way David Stearns and the New York media have been talking about him, and Jet Williams is not far behind him in that category. Those are two guys that have been talked about for so long, that they are the up and coming, that they are the next superstars of this team. They got some big shoes to fill fast if they are expected to contribute right away come opening day in 2026. I cannot believe that we're living in a world where Pete Alonso is not a Met for life. In a Baltimore of all places, so briefly from the Baltimore side of it, great move for the Orioles. I've always liked the Orioles. They're my dad's team. They're my brother's team. I've always been a distant Orioles fan because of that. So from that standpoint, I like the move. It's nice to see the Orioles spend money. Holy payday did they give to Pete. I did not expect that contract to look like that for Pete. They were in on Schwarber. They matched what the Phillies offered for Schwarber, but Schwarber just wanted to stay in preferred to stay in Philly. So they're making an effort. If they can get some pitching, the AL East is going to be an absolute circus with Baltimore back in the mix. It was a struggle in 2025. You had Adley injured for most of the year. You had Gunnar in and out. You had a rotation that was frankly just a mess after not keeping Corbin Burns. You lost your closer, Felix Bautista, for all of last year and most, if not all, of 2026. So when you get some pieces, if they can, I really think Baltimore, if they can go get Framber Valdez, I think Baltimore is in play for the AL East this year. Because that is a very young and very exciting team. Gunnar and Adley are the leaders of that team from a production standpoint. Before Pete coming in, if you can get Adley back healthy, if you can get Gunnar just back to being Gunnar, and you throw Pete into the mix, that is a very good Baltimore lineup. Now, if they can fix that rotation, they also brought in Taylor Ward. They did give up Grayson Rodriguez, but everywhere else in that rotation is a little bit of a mess. So if Baltimore can get a starter or two in there, I would not be surprised if they compete in the AL East this year. If Pete wasn't going to stay a Met, I was certain he was going to be a Boston Red Sox. I was certain going into the offseason, based on the rumors and need, that Pete was going to stay a Met for life or he was going to Boston. Those were the only two possibilities. You know, you see like the Cubs are sniffing around and the Mariners, but then the Mariners signed Naylor, so they're out of it. The Blue Jays are out of it because they paid Vladdy. You see the Orioles are sniffing around. You see the Cubs are sniffing around. I did not think that the Orioles were actually going to be the ones to get it done. I thought it was going to be the Mets or the Red Sox for Pete. So good on Baltimore. It's a great get for them. And he's going to fit in good in that lineup. And that is a very scary lineup. If Baltimore can get some pitching help, that is a very scary team in the AL East come 2026. On the Mets side of it, it sucks because that is a big bat to replace. You already, I guess production-wise, offensive production-wise, replacing Nimmo with Semien is kind of like a one-for-one almost. I don't think Semien is offensively going to contribute as much as Nimmo did, but I certainly don't think he's going to be a slouch. I think he's a 20 to 25 homer guy, probably drive in the around 70, it's about Nimmo level. But I don't think he's going to be when he was finishing in the top 3 in the MVP voting when he was with the Blue Jays type Semien. I mean, if that'd be great if the Mets can get that, but I think he'll be around maybe a little under from a production standpoint of Nimmo. So we'll call that a wash. Williams and Diaz, I don't think you can call that a wash just because of Williams' struggles with the Yankees last year. He was much better towards the end of the year, but the start of his Yankee tenure was just a nightmare. I think now that maybe he's a little more settled pitching in a big market, that will help. And first base is just, right now first base, you got McNeil and Vientos. We saw a little bit of Vientos at first. We know he's been working on it this offseason. And I've never seen McNeil play first, so I'm very interested to see how that goes. I don't think the Mets are ready or eager to call up Ryan Clifford, who is one of their top prospects as well. I think Jet Williams and Carson Bench will be up, if not on the opening day roster in 2026. Clifford, I think, would be a late season call-up depending on how 2026 goes. If it's a dumpster fire of a season, he would be up, or if they rattle off a 100-win season and they're coasting the last 2 weeks of the season, they bring him up, hey, let's see what Clifford's got when there's absolutely no pressure. But I don't think if the Mets are fighting to the end of the year like they were in 2025 for a playoff spot, I don't think they'll bring up Clifford for that. But it's a big hole to fill. It's a sucky situation from a Mets fan perspective to be in right now. And there was the talk in the offseason that they were going to shake up the core. Lindor, Pete, Nimmo, Soto, McNeil, those kind of guys being your core. They were going to shake up the core a little bit. Everyone, including myself, thought McNeil was going to be the one to go. And McNeil's the one staying. Obviously, Lindor and Soto aren't going anywhere. But Pete and Nimmo are gone, and McNeil's the one staying. Everyone thought McNeil was going to be the one going. And McNeil could still go. I mean, if the Mets are going to pull off a trade for a big-name reliever or a big-name starter, whatever the case is McNeil involved in that trade? Or is Mauricio and or Acuna involved in that trade? Need to start. The Mets have a rotation. It's a lot of ifs and a lot of need to step ups in that rotation. That's why I think getting a starter would be helpful. I've wanted Zach Gallen for a long time. I wanted the Mets to pick him up at the deadline. That would be a great get for the Mets if they can get Zach Gallen in here. Of course, I would love Tarek Skubal. I'm scared to death to see what that's going to be or what that's going to cost. But I'm also in the mindset of if the Mets get Tarek Skubal, you have to pay him. You can't give up what you're going to give up and not pay him. I don't know where the Mets offseason goes from here. Right now, Semien is in. And I'm trying to think, what else have the Mets freaking done? They haven't really done much this offseason except lose everyone. Nimmo's out, Pete's out, Diaz is out. Semien has come in. And I definitely know I'm missing one. Devin Williams, duh. So, here's a list of where the Mets currently stand. So, Semien and Devin Williams in. Pete, Nimmo, Diaz, Helsley, Gregory Soto, Cedric Mullins, gone. Still a free agent. Griffin Canning, Jesse Winker, Ryan Stanek, Starling Marte, Taylor Rogers. Rogers, I would be okay with bringing back to the bullpen. He was good for the Mets. Marte, as a bench guy, if he's okay with being a bench guy. Stanek probably has run his course with the Mets. Winker and Canning are interesting because they were both very good for the Mets until injuries took them out pretty much the whole year. We know with Winker, and then Canning was great for the Mets until he popped his Achilles. So I just cannot believe the Mets let Pete Alonso go that easily. Not even making him a freaking offer is mind-boggling to me. And I'm trying to keep the faith in Stearns and Cohen. They're making it very difficult, especially with the way this offseason has gone. I mean, what the core, yes, hasn't won anything. We'll say 2019 because that's when Pete came up. That's when Diaz came to the Mets. 2019, they just missed making the playoffs. They had that late push at the end of the year, just fell a little bit short. 2020, not going to count because it was COVID. 2021, disaster. 2022, 100-win season, but you got knocked out in the first round of the playoffs. 23 was a nightmare from hell. Everything that could went wrong, went wrong. 24, the exact opposite, was so magical, and then 2025 was just flat out a disappointment. So something needed to change to get this team going, and I guess it comes at the expense of losing your face of the franchise left fielder, closer, and first baseman, which just sucks. But that's baseball. I mean, the fact that Pete is not going to be a Met for life is just crazy to me. And I mean, him and Diaz, both their press conferences are tomorrow at 4. So that'll be very interesting to see. I'm very interested to listen to Pete especially from his side, and Diaz kind of out on Diaz a little bit because it's starting to feel like he wanted out. I don't even know. I don't know where this team goes. I don't know how to feel about this offseason and the lack of moves and the moves that have been made. You get humbled very quick as a fan when you have the richest owner who just last offseason, just over a year ago today, a year and couple days and change, was inking the biggest contract in the history of North American sports. In the following offseason, you trade your left fielder, you lose out on your closer, and you lose out on your first baseman. Incredibly frustrating. An incredibly sucky offseason. I hope Pete does well in Baltimore. That's a great get for them. It sucks that Pete's not going to be a Met for life, but I guess that's just how baseball is going to be. So that's pretty much going to wrap it up for this little bonus episode of Raise the Apple. Make sure you follow on Twitter and subscribe on YouTube and TikTok at RTA_pod. And we will see you guys next time. Hopefully the Mets have better results and better response to things. So we'll have to wait and see. You got to believe. Let's go Mets.